welcome to Access Magic. I am joined today by Mark Winters, the senior art director of the Dominaria set we're going to talk about today, and Ethan Fleischer, who's a senior game designer on the set. So thanks so much for joining us.
Well, thanks for having us.
Yeah, of course.
Hello.
So we are going back to Dominaria. It's been about 60 years in game, right? Like 11 years in real life. And so a lot has changed. There have been a couple of apocalypses. Some weird time stuff has happened. So I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about Dominaria's history, and you sort of can't do that without mentioning Urza. So if you could talk a little bit about Urza, the Brothers' War. He's sort of a contentious figure. He's very complex. So there's a lot to unpack, but... Yeah.
Urza, though he's dead, looms large still in the minds of the people of Dominaria. He's a savior to some and a villain to others.
Right.
He and his brother in ancient times, in Magic's first story, had a huge war called the Brothers' War, where they destroyed the entire continent of Teresiare in their lust for power, essentially, trying to win over against each other. At the end of that, Urza became a planeswalker and then continued to meddle with Dominaria to prepare it for the Phyrexian invasion for thousands of years.
Yeah, he's hard to like at first, right?
Sure.
Like, he's abrasive. He doesn't like you, certainly.
Me specifically?
You specifically. But I mean, he's not a very people person,
right?
Just in general. But he's still one of my favorite characters.
Is he?
In Magic.
You like the morally gray?
Yeah, I do.
Aspect of him, yeah.
I think in Karn's Planeswalker card, he's depicted in stained glass, looking over his shoulder. So yeah, the influence of Urza is certainly still in play in Dominaria. Right.
And speaking of Karn, we're going to see Karn again. He had a connection to sort of another really iconic part of Dominaria's history, the Weatherlight. He was a member of the crew. I don't think he's not anymore, presumably.
Right.
He's sort of doing some soul searching. Do robots have souls? That's a question for another day. But he's doing some soul searching. But he was part of the crew of the Weatherlight. And the Weatherlight is back. It was underneath the ocean for a little bit, right? But it's been brought back to its former glory with some new touches. So if you could talk a little bit about the Weatherlight and sort of what motivated you guys to bring it back and what the new design is like and sort of the logic behind that.
When we first sat down to do Dominaria, Kelly Diggs, the senior creative lead on the set, and I wanted the Weatherlight back. We were just like, I want to do the Weatherlight.
Right.
It was super important for a good deal of the story. It was like literally the vehicle by which people went from place to place. Dominaria is a huge place, and we needed some way to tie together all of these different things that were separated by thousands of miles of ocean. How can you do that when you can't just teleport like some of our old characters maybe?
And it had its own arc, right, between sets. So there was the original Weatherlight set.
Right.
And then it went all the way to Apocalypse, is that right?
Yep, all the way through the end of the Phyrexian invasion.
Right.
So I got together with Tyler Jacobson, who was our concept artist working in-house at the time, and had him going on some sketches. But none of them were quite hitting me where they needed to. And so I look over to him and I was like, Tyler, I need the 1701A, not the 1701D. And he just went, I got you. And so he goes back to his desk. And he does just one more drawing, and he hands it to me. And I was like, that's the thing. That's what got me in my heartstrings, you know? I was like, yeah, I was responding to it, but that was just me. But we have this wall where we're hanging concept art up. So I put it up, and the following morning, I hear this kind of high-pitched squeal coming from the other side. But I look over, and I can see Ethan's head because Ethan's a tall giant man, and it was a kind of a short wall.
Right, so it's just like a sweet little Ethan head poking above the
I just hear this high-pitched squeal coming from Ethan's giant body. And at that point, I knew, I was like, we're onto something here.
Right.
We're onto something here. So we continued the process of the design.
That's great. So you're sort of capturing the original spirit of the Weatherlight, but it's still the Weatherlight that we've always
I hope it evokes the same feelings that the original would. Yeah.
Right. The other thing about Dominaria, the set, of course, is that we're returning to a lot of places that we haven't been to in many years. And the last time we left Dominaria, it wasn't in like the best place, right? There were a couple of apocalypses.
Yeah.
Things weren't looking great.
Right. Last time we saw it, it was just ash fields and salt
Rain
flats.
salts. Yeah.
Everyone was wearing gas masks.
We quickly settled into kind of springtime. It's springtime on Dominaria. I didn't know how we were going to get there. I didn't know what that meant. So Kelly and I were kind of like working it out. So we were like thinking vibrant renewal. And that ended up being a pretty strong theme.
Right.
Not just for like the picture making, but the cultures involved
Right.
as well.
Right. Something I love about the art too is you have these ruins that there's now foliage growing over. So you have the sense of, in just a single image, that there's history and also renewal in a lot of these
Yeah,
places.
it's surprisingly like how simple an idea it is.
Right.
But how difficult it was to come
I
by.
bet. Yeah,
originally.
I bet.
We took those two ideas and we tried to use that as an overlay for each culture that we were working on, like the Benelish.
Right.
So we saw a piece of Benelish art and it kind of had stained glass thing on it. We're like, what if that was a thing? What if it was enchanted somehow?
Right. And it was as strong as metal.
Right.
Right.
And just imagine a stained glass shield and a steel sword smashing against it. And the sword is shattering
Right.
against the glass. Like, that doesn't even make any sense.
Right, right.
And so that actually became one of the first card concepts we came up with
Right.
for the set.
And I remember that piece of art. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, all these places are finding a different sense of renewal. So, and you can kind of see how their design links to sort of their sensibilities. So in Benalia, it seems like there's sort of a spiritual reverence, and it evokes that connection to Church of Sarah. And then we have Talaria and the Talarian Academy. And would you talk a little bit about that design logic and how you kind of came up with a new look for...
So Talaria originally got destroyed
Right.
Back in the day. And now it's a series of campuses.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun. I did a little bit of the work on Talaria, and I was really inspired by this documentary about like students of Ludwig Wittgenstein, and they all acted really weird, and they all had the same accent. And I was like, wow, that is weird. I was like, okay, there's something here about like who your teacher is and a lineage of
Right.
pedagogy, right? Like.
Right.
One of the things that I thought about was like, okay, some of these Talarians are going to be Urzins. They're going
Right.
to be,
Urza
followers of
founded it,
Urza's
right?
teaching.
Yeah.
He founded the Talarian Academy, and then some of them will be Baronites. Baron was the first headmaster of the academy, and very different personality from Urza. Clashed with him constantly, and then Rain was Baron's wife. And she had a totally different approach also.
Right.
Very few of her students died, for instance.
As an art director and an artist, there's a number of concepts and pictures that would come through that I'd want to paint. And so I would put those off to the side and not commission those.
Right.
At least not at first, because I was like, if I can find the time, I want to do this one.
Right.
And it was the Mishraist is one of the ones that I wanted to do. But I'm attracted to like a little bit of the darker stuff. I do like Mishra as a character as well.
A sort of dark section of Dominaria is Urborg, right? I know it's kind of interesting because it's spooky, but it's not.
When we were developing the set, it was suddenly to me taking itself very, very seriously. I had this goofy idea of mixing like a Mike Mignola, Miyazaki sort of flavor into black, where it could be dangerous and spooky, but charming at the same time.
Totally.
And so we kind of took the notion that like these spirits that lived in the swamp, that they've kind of developed a civilization around themselves.
Right.
And they have these personalities, and they engage in commerce and trade, and they do things. In it.
And I think it's a charming take.
Yeah.
I like the idea of like, ghosts having neighbors and, mowing their ghost lawns, That's great. So those are the black cards. And then we have our red cards, which are Keld and Shiv centric, right? So can you talk a little bit about Keld and maybe Radha, who is the sort of the new warlord, as it were, of the Keld?
Well, Keld, I think, of the older material was the best developed of the cultures. So we knew a lot about this. They're a warrior culture. They believe that the world used to belong to them in the old days and will again.
Right.
But they have this tragedy in their past. They've gone through their Ragnarok. It happened, and it didn't go well for them.
Right. They don't happen to own the world at this moment, right?
Yeah. Like their honored dead were supposed to rise again and fight in the final battle, which was the Phyrexian invasion. What the prophecies were a little ambiguous about is what side their honored dead would fight on. And
That's so tragic.
All of these zombies of the heroes of old rose up and fought on the side of the Phyrexians in the final battle. So as you can imagine, that caused a lot of uncertainty in their society.
Yeah.
And eventually, out of all of this confusion rose a new leader, which is Radha.
The thing about the Radha painting is she's holding a sword over a fallen victim. The sword is gleaming and perfect. Her fists are bloody. Like, she killed this dude.
Right.
She didn't need to use the sword.
Right.
I just love that.
So we have our green cards left, and in one of the forests, there are kind of some jerks that live there, some elves, right? Llanowar. I love them. I think they're punk rock. I think they're awesome.
They're very xenophobic.
Yes.
They don't like anybody who's not an elf coming onto their land. With good reason. Humans have a history of wrecking everything, and so do orcs and goblins and people like that. They just mess stuff up, and the elves keep everyone out. They have a famous law, which is one bone broken for every twig snapped underfoot, I believe.
Wow.
So, if you do go there, don't do anything wrong. Don't mess with any plants or animals or anything, because they will get you.
Right. And their design is super cool.
The Llanowar elves have always had a very distinct punk rock look. And when we went back, I didn't mess with it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna go ahead and keep that.
Yeah.
And so what we did was just take that original inspiration and just make more and give it more diversity.
Why mess with a good thing?
Why mess with a good thing?
Well, thanks so much for chatting with me about Dominaria, guys. It's been awesome to catch up. Excited to hear more about the story and what we've got set up in the cards. But I really love to hear about where these places that we haven't been to in so long have been faring.
Yeah.
Seems like things are a little bit better than they have been in the past, which is nice to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Of course. And then I guess